statistics on this, Bill. Levitated by the human touch.
Here's the pass. Antonio's through. Chance of 4. What a goal! What a brilliant strike by Michail Antonio!
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Knees Up Mother Brown podcast. I am joined, as ever, by my two, they're children, basically, my two co-hosts, my two analytics scholars, Jack Elton and Callum Goodall. Good evening, gentlemen. Are we full of energy this evening?
I'm 21. I'm just letting everyone know.
Basically 12.
I'm 24 as of last week as well, so I'm pretty much a fully fledged adult at this point. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm
years
good.
old. Good. Well, we've been away for a little while, but if you would like to get in contact with the podcast, as I'm sure you've all been chomping at the bit to do, if you want to stroke our egos and have the honour of hearing your names read aloud by me, all correspondence can be sent to either the email address, which is kumbpodcast@gmail.com. You can go on the forum for the podcast thread, kneesupmotherbrown.com, kumb.com again, and you can tweet the boss on Twitter as well, and he'll pass things on to us. It's kumb.com, and as I'll say every time, all words, no punctuation. But intros aside, it's time to talk about Wolves, really, isn't it, Jack? And that was, I guess, I've seen a little bit on Twitter. You sent me a picture of the shape. Not your favourite game you've watched for a while.
No, it was bad, quite bad.
Good in detail.
Particularly the first 45 minutes. I, as everyone who's been following the podcast will know, I do these sort of second watches, and usually that's a really enjoyable process at the moment because we've been quite good. But doing the second watch for Wolves was it was a torturous experience. And you noted that I sent you, I think, 2 pictures where I just stopped in the middle of watching and just gone, what on earth are we doing here? And screenshotted it just to show the complete lack of organisation or shape in the team in the first half. It was really, really not good, particularly in that first 45 minutes.
It's interesting because I think of you as my kind of formation tactical guru, and I have no expertise at all. Callum does the transfers, you do the formations, I exist. But even I could see that was all wrong. I'd brought up last time we spoke about the Wolves. We had talked about their shape and what that might do to us, and I felt a bit of a fool really because it's what you react to and how they play. But it certainly felt like their wing backs destroyed us. I mean, Fornals in particular. And maybe that's the worst game he's played since the early Pellegrini days where people didn't like him.
Yeah, he really struggled. I mean, I think one of the key things to do against Wolves this season is probably to press Neves and Moutinho because both of them are playing quite well at the moment. And I think we've seen Moyes use this kind of hybrid shape where you defend in a 5-4-1 or a 3-4-3 and then can attack in a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-3, which looks a bit different, sort of with a false 9 through the middle and 2 split strikers that come in off the flanks. And kind of one of the things that can do for you is it gives you an additional man in the press and allows you to press higher and stop balls into central midfielders. I think that's.
I don't remember the press, Jack. I don't remember the press at all.
Yeah. So exactly. I think you have to hope that's the reason why we did this. I mean, like I've said on Twitter after the game, he's had 2 weeks to set this up. So it's a good idea on paper. But my issue with it is it being a good idea on paper aside, in practice, it's been terrible. We tried it against Brentford and got slaughtered by long balls to Ivan Toney. And we tried it against Genk and got absolutely rinsed in the first half against Genk away. Junior Ito seemed to work out. It's not really rocket science, but if I just run into my own half and pick the ball up on the turn and get central midfielders to run beyond the press, then West Ham really don't know how to recover those situations. And again here, much like that sort of horrifying first 30 minutes against Genk, you saw a lot of the same sort of patterns happening. Less overcommitments from the midfielders, which is a good thing, but where we improved on having less overcommitments from central midfielders, we had total lack of interest in defending the flanks from the split strikers, so Bowen and Antonio. I think that had to have been intentional to get the press higher up the pitch, but it had the opposite effect completely. And like you said, it just meant that Semedo and Nori just had the most ridiculous amount of space to charge into. And these, usually what we do really well is having matched up 3v3s or 3v2s in the wide areas and not giving people time. And here it was just 2v1 all the time on the fullbacks, Johnson and then Fornals on the other side.
I think it felt like Fornals wasn't playing anywhere. Is what my feeling was watching the game. He wasn't following Semedo, but he would kind of be near Cresswell, who then Cresswell wasn't marking anyone because Fornals was probably meant to be tracking Semedo, so they were both doing no one. But then he wasn't getting forward down the left either. I mean, I don't know what you noticed, Cal. I mean, you're going to have slightly more of an expert eye than me. I'll give you that, but.
I wouldn't say so. Yeah, man, it was just chaotic from start to finish, really. Like, it just wasn't pleasurable. And I think after the matches we've had, everyone has sort of fallen into this comfort zone where it's like, oh yeah, I think a lot of people expected us to go and win, basically. And then it's a bit, obviously there's always a shock factor, as there is with any good run of form. It's a big, the longer you play well, the further you fall, kind of thing. But yeah, it was just absolutely mental. We're going to talk about the shape a bit more later on, but yeah, Fornals in particular was the most disappointing for me. But I don't want to let him off the hook too much, but I think there was also a lot of that has to go towards the management, because they were asking him to do so many jobs that, like, you can't ask him to play left wing back at any point in the game. He's not a left wing back, so clearly he's not going to perform well. One thing we've picked up on before is how often he gets dribbled past in the middle of the park. So putting him in an even more defensive role is just chaos. So it's never going to end well for me.
I actually looked, I've done my research here madly, and looked at last season and the dribble past stats, and second in the league overall for total numbers of times dribble past Fornals, and also top by 5%, might I add, for being the worst tackler in the entire division, with an 8.5% success rate across the whole of last season. So taking, by definition, the worst tackler in the entire Premier League and saying, do you know what, go and play in the defence, is probably not the wisest decision I've ever seen a very astute manager make.
I'm interested because I consider him someone who's quite good defensively, and I don't know whether that's because he's positionally aware, so it doesn't affect him in terms of you're not seeing as much, or just because he's diligent, so he's always there.
It's pressures, volume of pressures. It's the amount of times that he's willing to commit to pressing things, and also his awareness of when to press and when not to press. He's not actually the most successful presser, but he's very good at picking his moments. And he does it consistently across a whole game. So that's what he's very, very good at.
What he got credit for against Liverpool, isn't it? That when he chose to go, I think that was when we talked about that, is when he chose to go and what he did led the team.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's strange, really, I understand the benefits of high turnovers and stopping the supply into Neves and Moutinho. I get that. But to detract really from the things that we do well in order to try and do that didn't really make sense, because it stopped us. I mean, it completely negates all the things that we do well normally, to try and hyper focus in on something that the other team rely very heavily on. And when you can't then execute that plan successfully, you just end up not doing the things you do well any longer, and also not being able to stop the other team doing what they do well. So it's just a complete horror show on every level. So yeah, Fornals at left wing back was a big issue. The spaces between Souček and Rice in the first half are just like nauseatingly bad. You've got like 20-yard spaces between the two central midfielders as each of them are trying to cover across to stop the wing backs from having so much space. And then I love Michail Antonio, but I have no idea what he was doing.
That was my next question, was Antonio and what he was doing. Now I know we've you would almost call them kind of pre-production meetings, I suppose, what we have when we talk. It sounds really professional. For the most part, it's just occasional notes in a Twitter thread, and then we talk before we start recording. But, pull back the veil and all that. But you were harsher on him than I was. I think in the end of my ratings, I gave him a 6, and you gave him a 3, I said. Now, granted, I stick to the traditional style where 6 means eh. And you do some sort of new school where numbers scale in order, weirdly.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's noticed this. We talked about this pre-pod, but 0 to 10 means 0 to 10. It doesn't start at 6, everyone.
Not in football
Ratings don't
ratings.
start at 6. I mean, what's the point? It might as well be 6 to 10 because we never rate anyone below 6 unless they've literally scored 2 own goals and got sent off.
There's going to be a knock at your door from some sort of the Football Writers Association.
Well,
Take him away, boys. 6 is fine.
I gave Mick a 3, and that's because he was below average and worse than that. So 5 would be average, 4 would be a below average performance, and 3 would be an actively bad display. And he, for me, was actively counterproductive to everything that we did for the whole game.
I will jump in and defend him a little bit, and then go to Callum so that you have to stew on it. Where I will give him credit is I think any sort of passing to him was generally, it was what I'd refer to as Carlton Cole days, where Carlton stood up front with about 2 or 3 defenders around him. We pinged the ball up near his head or somewhere he had to run to, and unsurprisingly, he couldn't beat all 3 players to it. And then it happened again and again. And because Fornals was back and because Bowen was floating around on the edge of existence for a lot of the game.
That's a really good description of Bowen's position, by the way.
I've got my strengths. I slightly felt sorry for him, but I will, you look at that game, we had five defined key passes according to who scored, and he had 2 of them. Maybe, key passes is a slightly weird metric that I don't always understand, and maybe that's because last 20-30 minutes of the game it completely changed and he was allowed to play, but he did do that, and I do think he was let down by what was a completely failed system behind him. So I kind of almost I've gone, you've got to let him off, because what's a man to do? Cal?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and the system was largely to blame, but there are some things that you kind of just expect or hope from your strikers, and he just didn't deliver on some intangibles yesterday. Like, for me, a striker with 65% passing success is just whack. Like, that is so poor, because he's just giving away the ball 35% of the time he's trying to release it, which is just so ineffective, especially for a team that tries to play like we do. Like, it's just not going to work. And then I think it was like 33% passes, like forward passes. It's like, that's a move just dying, like 2/3 of the time.
It is worth bringing up that possibly our best chance for a move was that one where he passed right at the defender when Bowen should have been through. And then the one he did get through was obviously offside, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. Go on, Jack.
I would also say, like, we can argue about the system for forever, and I'd probably say it wasn't the wisest decision to go for a 3-4-3 split striker system. But once you've done that, you still have to do your job. Do you know what I mean? You can't just blame Moyes and say, well, the system wasn't very clever. You should blame Moyes for the system not being very clever, but then you do have to look at what the players did with that system, which was absolutely terrible.
Yes, I can't imagine they were sent out like that.
No, the execution of their roles in the system was abysmal. Most notably Fornals, Rice, Antonio, Bowen. Like, absolutely shocking in the first half. I don't know whether that's because you look at Fornals has been away and then had a baby, so hasn't had the 2 weeks to work on it. Antonio's been away, came back late. Rice has been ill. If you think about the players who really struggled, mostly the players who probably wouldn't have had the entire 2 weeks to look at what we were doing and to adapt to playing in a different way. But particularly Antonio, I mean, it's hugely frustrating to watch in the first half, where he's obviously meant to be the guy on the left of the 3. Direct your criticism of that to Moyes. What on earth are you doing putting Antonio out on the left wing? But once he's there, you've got to cover back, man. You can't just stand on the halfway line and go, I'd rather be in the middle, and look at Ben Rama, who's playing in the middle, and go on. Can you do it again?
Yeah.
Can you do it again for the 9th time in the first half?
You did pop up down the right, didn't you? I thought, there's no way you're meant to be there. There's no way you're meant to be there.
Left. What are you doing at right wing back? What are you doing over there? It's just so frustrating, because that is a non-negotiable. Once you've been told you're playing on the left, cover your wing back. Don't just stand in the middle of the pitch because you'd rather be playing striker and look at the person who's playing the false 9 position and go, well, you usually play there. Can't you just go and cover it for me? It's just embarrassingly poor. And one of the only times this season where I've looked at an individual performance, it's just unacceptable, like lack of effort, lack of interest in doing what you've been asked to do.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. It was like, I think you could see It's one thing that annoys me with a lot of players. It's semi-understandable, but also like, you're a professional. But you could see he was getting more and more frustrated and was trying more and more stupid stuff, or like just making the wrong decisions. And it was like just a bit petulant. Like clearly you're not having a good day at the office, but you're a team of 11 players. Like dig in, do what you've been asked to do. Yeah, and just like you say, cover your man and just do the simple stuff like passing a football.
That is something that always bugs me. That does bug me. It's something that bugs me watching Harry Kane sometimes, and it's a very different team and a different person who's probably discussed. But some players, when they get on bad form, they just go and do other things. And you think, well, it's not going to help the thing that you're struggling to do because you're struggling to do the things you need to do. Why don't you just really focus on the basics of that?
And this, just briefly, this is where the only player who came in the pressing unit out with credit from the first half was Ben Rama, because it wasn't working, and that bloke stuck to it for the whole first half, chased things, covered the left side, covered the right side, got back to the middle and pressed. He worked so hard covering other people who basically downed tools because they didn't agree with what they were doing and didn't understand what they were doing. He really, really went for it and tried his best to plug gaps. And frankly, I won't give him credit for this, but we were very, very lucky to get through to half time at 0-0, and his effort levels would have been a really important part of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I will go on to half time and then what should have changed or what hasn't changed, etc., and what changes we did make. I did feel, I think Ben Rama almost, it was kind of a default decision to take him off, whereas you'd actually thought the two others either side of him were playing worse. You should allow him the chance to go do something different because he's obviously at least doing his basics. And it's because, I mean, at half time, and just a quick snappy one for both of you, what would you have done at half time, Jack, were you in charge?
I would have changed back to 4-2-3-1, which seemed blindingly obvious. And I probably would have taken Fornals off. I think he was playing so badly in terms of what he was doing on the ball that even when you push him up to left midfield, it's not like he's going to become a different, like he's not going to turn into the Fornals that you usually see when he's playing left midfield. He's just wasn't having a good game and was playing out of position. So I would have taken him off at that point, maybe shifted Ben Rama out there, who'd been playing there for long stretches anyway, because Antonio can be bothered to do his job down the left side, and maybe brought Lanzini on at that point to try and regain some tempo control, put a really sensible presser in there, someone who can drop in and form a 3, allows us to sit in a 4-5-1 and just get some control back at the start of the first half, rather than carrying on with this kind of like, I don't know, hope that somehow Wolves are going to continue to squander opportunities and
you are a man. You're a man too angry to do snappy right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Snappily, what would you have done at half time?
Well, luckily for you, it's pretty much the exact same thing. I think, revert to the shape that we've had success with. Why change? I get why we changed it to try and counter it, but it clearly wasn't working. And the fact that he didn't see that and revert,
so what you're saying,
no sense.
Because what I would have done was either bring Lanzini on and covered that gap in midfield so we could keep the ball, or matched up and put Masuaku on and said, well, if you want to do this, why not do it properly rather than half doing it? But what I would not have done was nothing.
He didn't do nothing. That's not true. He didn't do nothing.
What did he do?
He did push Fornals up into a much more standard 4-2-3-1 shape. It happened straight away from half time, and we still defended in the 5-4-1 low block, but when they got through the first layer of the press, we stopped pressing with the 3-4-3 split strikers. We started pressing with Fornals higher up the pitch like we usually would. So he did make that change at half time.
I don't think that was enough, because if it left us still defending in the way we were defending, it's easy for me to say with hindsight it wasn't enough, because we went and conceded and let it go. But I suppose I'm still annoyed. I was really angry watching that game with Moyes, and it's the first time for a while I was angry with Moyes. Obviously, we've been good, but also we've lost games in the past, like Man United, even Brentford. Maybe Brentford, I think he could have changed some things earlier, but I don't blame him for not. They were the players that he had. They're his key players. But this one, it felt kind of back to maybe not last season, but the season before, where he's very passive. And he's not proactive, and he's very reactive if he has to be. And this, to me, is what happened, really.
Yeah, and it's weird because we've said on the pod in the previous episodes that we've started to notice a more proactive version of Moyes, and I just would not have predicted what happened against Wolves, because it's just not in line with the kind of new, well, not necessarily new Moyes, but this version of Moyes that we've seen this season, where he's more than happy to make changes or adapt kind of fluidly as the game goes on. It was bizarre. It was really bizarre.
Because I suppose we should go to the goal really before we talk about the substitutions, because there were no substitutions. Sure. So it carried on the same, didn't it, Jack? The second half was just a continuation of the first half.
The second half, we still didn't have any control of the game, and I obviously then without the kind of control that we're used to, you're just kind of clinging on to the idea that when Wolves do get through the press, they're not going to make good decisions, which they were consistently doing. By the way, they weren't making poor decisions in the final third. But yeah, the goal, we keep conceding the same goal. It's starting to get really frustrating because it's the same goal every time, and it's another low cutback. I'm starting to lose my mind really with this.
But do you want to know what's going to make you really annoyed? If there's a team I think of that likes to get it wide and kind of cut back and put things low, it would probably be Manchester City, and unfortunately next week.
Yeah, so on the goal, just briefly to explain what I'm talking about rather than just sort of vaguely point at it, I think it's Podence who gets away down the right side. And again, we do this because we do it well. We flood the box to try and deal with the idea across the box. And that's why we're so good at dealing with those, and we rarely ever concede from those. But it's Souček this time. And I'm not going to jump on the Souček didn't play well thing, because I don't think he did play badly. I thought he was better than Rice, and dealt with the kind of several different position changes that he had throughout the game, and did a all right job in all of them. Didn't really do anything dramatically badly, and also created a decent chance for Yarmolenko if he'd been a little bit quicker. He had a lovely little flick pass through the center of the pitch. But yeah, Souček just dropping into the box when like Jimenez is not in the box. He's stopped on the edge. Where are you going? Just stay with him. There's no one in the box. What are we all covering? Why are you all running to the 6-yard box when there's no one there? Everyone's pulled out to the edge, and now you've all run away from the Wolves players, and then Jimenez has got a free shot from there. It's just so infuriating, because you can see how ingrained it is as well, because he's slow motion replay. Souček looks at him and goes, no, I'm told to go to the 6-yard box. So he's like still holding on to him while he's running away. It's like trying to drag him with him into the box. It's like, just stay with him. The chance doesn't come.
It did feel it came just after we kind of had the first time for a long time where we'd got a grip of possession in their half. What I would say about Carlo is if the only person I really felt sorry for at that point was Fabianski, who had been kind of keeping us in the game with not only some really good saves, he'd also done some punching when the defence had been an absolute mess on crosses and the ball shouldn't have got to him. And he had a good game.
He did have a really good game, and it's something we've said quite a lot actually this season. He's often been the star performer when we've had off days, for instance. He's the one that kind of consistently does stand out. I was it feels weird to say I was really impressed with anyone in that game, but he stood out because everyone else was so subpar, but he definitely did keep us in it while we were in it, and then kept it from being worse. But yeah, he commanded his area quite well as well, which I think was important and will continue to be important now that Ogbonna's out. That sort of voice at the back, he's going to have to really step up and make sure he's sort of bossing that line. So yeah, but no, I was impressed. Some good saves, and for his I guess maybe he knows his position is maybe not threatened, but there's obviously the pressure of Areola that's maybe giving him a bit of a twilight year almost.
So we got that goal, and almost immediately Moyes thought I should probably do something about this problem we've been having. Then, I thought Lanzini was. I mean, it's a different game, and I think there are some people that are tempering their praise or compliments of Lanzini because Wolves changed what they were doing, and Wolves, I did feel that they dropped off, and I don't think he's going to get any credit for that happening. But to me, Callum, I thought Lanzini was really, really good and helped relieve so many things that we were struggling to do.
Yeah, well, I think it was just like we've said, we would have brought him on at half time. It was obvious that we needed an extra body in there to kind of. We were struggling so much to retain possession in the middle of the park that, to be fair to them, both their centre mids played really well. I thought Neves and Moutinho had really good games.
Great form.
And that Neves pass on the edge of the box.
They're in great form. They're in ridiculous form, the pair of them.
And it's not often we say that. Like, we've got so used to Rice and Souček being like one of the best centre mid partnerships in the league, and quite often they don't struggle to dictate the play from the middle. But yes, the weekend they really came up against it. And yeah, there was just no real outlet. Like Jack's already mentioned quite rightly, the gaps between not only Rice and Souček, but between the backline and the midfield and the attack at various different intervals in the game. There was just never any hope. Like, you need that sort of in between, which you get when you play the 4-2-3-1, because you have that sort of floating 10-ish kind of thing, but never really feels like a 10 in our system, like an archetypal 10 anyway. But it helps link that play, and especially when we're playing on the counter as much as we do, those link ups are so important. I think the only time we really saw anything remotely attractive was the 12th minute, when there was like a few one-touch passes and it was like knocked in. I was like, oh, okay, we're going to play like that today. Yeah, boy. And then, oh no, it didn't happen.
Well, we had a lovely first 15, and then we were just crap.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was just painful to watch, and so obvious to see that he needed to come on. And he did do well when he came on, and it did change the tempo of the game. And we had a lot more possession after he came on as well, which is kind of the perfect case in point that was a needed move. It's just a shame it happened so late.
But what I think, where I guess people are criticising Souček, is when he's under pressure, he doesn't have much elegance or grace. He doesn't do things. He doesn't pop balls off quickly. And I don't think there's anyone better in our team, Jack, than Lanzini for give, go, constantly being the option. He'll give you the ball and he's already moved to make sure you can give it back to him. Others maybe run away. Lanzini runs where you want him to be if you're not maybe the greatest passer under pressure.
Well, Lanzini's not only the best at what he offers in the squad, he's probably the only member of the squad that offers that very specific skill set. I don't want to be too harsh. It's going to sound harsh on Lanzini, but I think you could have almost put an animated training cone in that position and it would have been better than what we were doing before. So I don't want to be, Lanzini, woo, but also just the system change is really the key thing. It's not Lanzini being remarkable individually. He was all right. He did what he does well, and helped us regain some control of the tempo, brought in with a couple of nice interceptions and tackles. He's good at that, and that's what he did. He didn't do anything remarkable, but him coming on is exactly what we needed just to regain some control of the game.
I suppose the argument is, I guess, we don't really have anyone else who can. It had to be Lanzini to do that role, because Benrahma can't. He doesn't. It's not how he plays. He bursts off, doesn't he?
No, he's like I said, he's the only member of the squad that can do that. It says there is no one else in the squad that can play that role.
Yeah, well, we've not seen Vlasic playing the 10 yet.
Yeah, but could Vlasic recover into a sort of a defensive midfield thing?
No. So. It's interesting to see that some people want Lanzini playing over Souček in the next game, which I think is probably not going to happen, because we're going to defend a lot against City, and Souček is going to you just have to get over it, mate. There are certain types of things that people see and don't see, Jack. People don't see those kind of
I think
embedded defensive work.
Yeah, like calling for dropping Souček and bringing Lanzini is a weird shout, but I think there could maybe be calls for maybe developing more of a 4-3-3 system than a 4-2-3-1. I think sometimes our midfield system looks tired and we don't have like a plan B. There should have been a plan B yesterday, and it kind of did become a 4-3-3 situation when Lanzini.
There was a bloody plan B. He just didn't do it. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
It's driving me mad this season. Stop blaming Souček when we don't play well. It's not his fault.
That's what I'm saying.
It's interesting.
Keep him on the
pitch.
It is
interesting. He hasn't scored the goals, so it means he's immediately bad. The goals were kind of a bonus, really. The goals were. He wasn't Fellaini.
It's like you've always got. Everyone's always got to have someone to blame. And what's annoying about it is he's not even the worst defender. He's nowhere near the worst defender. He's been quite good this season. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with Souček.
It's profile of what he's done, and if the profile of what he's done is dropped, so it doesn't. It just it's how it's affected. What that has gone is calls for Lanzini to come in for Benrahma, which is a little bit unfair. And also, I think if you're not happy with how Antonio played against Wolves, then you're certainly not going to be happy how Antonio plays when he doesn't have Benrahma to do his pressing for him.
Precisely that.
Because Lanzini doesn't get up and do it. He just doesn't. He's a different player.
Yeah,
so it's an interesting balance.
I get the calls for Lanzini to come in. I think it's probably deserved, but it is tricky to say who to drop because they all have their roles that when they actually perform them is good. Yeah. But unfortunately at the weekend, it's easy to make those calls now because just basically no one did their roles effectively. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to make sort of reactionary decisions based on that game, then I don't see why people aren't calling for Fornals to be dropped for Lanzini, really. That would be the obvious choice if you're going to be that reactive. But yeah, I don't know. It all seems a little bit fatalistic. Like it's one result.
It's one game. We played a different system, everyone. We don't need to drop the whole team for crying out loud. Just go back to what we did before. We were good.
That leads me really well onto apparent calls that some people want Sue Fowl back in over Johnson. Jack, what do you think? I have a feeling I might know.
No. Stop it, everyone. It's so annoying. Sorry. Ben Johnson was fine. He played well. He's probably one of the best players. Why have we got to drop him? Just because he's young?
It's because people... It's interesting because I saw someone saying Wolves pushed us to giving Cresswell the ball, which is nonsense. Cresswell always has, if not the first amount of touches and passes, the second to Rice. He is our outlet. That happens. Johnson is seen as having a slightly poorer passer out from the back. And he does... I mean, his passing accuracy was the lowest in the team except for Fornals and Antonio because they were awful. But again, defensively solid. I don't think Aït-Nouri was his problem. Because Aït-Nouri was coming in that system, not to him, really.
We had infinitely less problems down that side than the other side, and that says everything anyone needs to know. How many chances did they create down that side, everyone?
So
not many. Leave
that part of the podcast. That part of the podcast we'll move on from then. That section's done.
Move on. I've got nothing to add to that.
Anything on Vlasic and Yarmolenko, the use of them, Vlasic in general, again, people... Well, I will give him credit before we talk anything more. He kept up with Traoré on that counter-attack really well for someone I didn't think was that fast.
Yeah, it was good. It was a nice little recovery run. Shame it was the only thing he did well in the whole game.
I don't know. I'm just growing frustrated with it. Like, I obviously wanted him to come in and do really well, but to be fair, he's not. I still don't think you can expect him to just hit down and be a sick player when he's getting these dead cameos. But
fully agree with that. I couldn't agree more. It's I'm harsh on him, but I said myself on Twitter that you can't build any momentum playing 20 minutes here and there. It's just stupid.
It does feel like he never gets to play if we're playing well. It doesn't get to play if we play well.
And he's meant to save the day every time we play badly when he's not had any run of games. So it's just ludicrous to expect
him out
that.
Of position as well. Like he literally said the reason he left Everton is because he was being played as a winger and he wasn't able to thrive, so he had to leave. And now we've brought him back and we're just forcing him to play 20-minute appearances as a winger. Like, I don't know. It's just poor man management.
Good use of 30 million. I will give Yarmolenko some credit. He was frustrating as he always is with his meandering play, but he did look again. He does bring an intent to go towards the actual goal, which I quite like. Because some of our players do not look like people who want to go towards the goal. I know it's really difficult because he's very annoying and he tries things that in our system don't work, but I do like him as an alternative in that respect. It's all I will give him credit for.
You know what? He runs towards the goal though, but then he always gets there and does a step over and passes it back. So it kind of just nullifies the whole movement.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I like the intent because we have games sometimes where you think these people just want to run around really fast, not going at the fucking goal. I swear. And sometimes you think it's not worked for 70 million lads. Why don't we try and why don't we just think maybe we have to test them really basically?
I think my favourite moment of the whole game in terms of it being frustrating was when Yarmolenko, sometimes he just gets that look about him that he's going to do something special. And he was dribbling away down the right and he cut inside and it's like, hold on a minute, what's Antonio doing being the defender? He's just covering every angle he tries to run into. It's like,
he did block him.
What are you doing, mate?
He did make some space at that point. If it doesn't matter because Antonio's just in the way.
Yeah.
He shadowed the entire run like he was playing left back.
You do sometimes think to yourself, well, how do you find an alternative to Antonio? You go, well, look what he's just done, and think it probably isn't that hard sometimes. I don't know.
I think the most concise way to sum up the whole Wolves thing is, what do West Ham do when Antonio doesn't play well? It's like, what on earth do we do when he's having such an off game? It's like, how do we react to that? And we had nothing at all.
I suppose that's where you have to criticise all the reticence to buy a different striker, because we don't have options. And I don't think Moyes really likes using Vlasic and Yarmolenko either. So suddenly you're looking at the whole bench thinking you don't want to change anything in attack other than Lanzini, who isn't really an attacking move. It's almost a defensive move to help the attack get the ball a bit.
Imagine how you would have felt if we'd had Arnautovic to bring off the bench.
Oh, I mean, I banged on about it all summer, but he's apparently, even though everyone in the dressing room likes him, he's too bad an influence. So
no, I'm not sorry. It's not about Arnautovic specifically. It's just like there's a striker who's at the level, who's not necessarily remarkable, who wouldn't necessarily be demanding to be the first name on the team sheet.
Oh no,
they do exist. Yeah. And imagine if we had someone like that in that situation to bring off the bench. Suddenly there's a whole load of options that were not available in that game that can change it in our favour.
Maybe we don't even have to start Antonio when he's tired and he's been in a private jet. Callum,
Hello.
Hello, hi, how are you? We had a little bit of a change, obviously, at the centre-backs. And Kurt Zouma went down to the left. What do you think? I mean, we'll start with Kurt Zouma and I'll go on to Craig Dawson because Jack's quite angry and I can feed him that to keep him going. But Kurt.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was ugly. But again, I'm not going to jump on his back because he's being asked to do something that he shouldn't really be asked to do. Like, I don't think he should have to go to the left centre-back role if he's a right-sided centre-back and we've got a left-sided centre-back on the bench. Like, it's a roll of the dice. Do you play Dawson? Do you play Diop? And we all knew Moyes was going to play Dawson because I feel like he almost feels kind of indebted to him because of how well he played at the end of last season. Maybe trusts him more. But clearly, like, watching Zouma, like, it just completely stifled any sort of build-up play at all because the whole passing dynamic is off. He's off balance. He looked scared of the ball when it was coming down because he had to, like, control it out of his feet, adjust his body shape. Like, the fluidity is just gone. And then if you've got a centre back who's essentially not even lacking in confidence, just like I say, just kind of afraid and overthinking things, it's never going to work. It's never going to end well at all. And yeah, it was marked in the numbers. Like, he had considerably worse defensive duel rate. I think it was around 50%, which you don't want your centre backs like losing half of their defensive duels. Like, that's another. We were talking about intangibles, and that's got to be one from a centre back. And it's uncharacteristic of him, but playing at the left-sided centre back is uncharacteristic of him as well. Like, it's not. I don't want to be too harsh on him because I think, as other mistakes have been, it's a system thing. But I guess
you can look at long balls played out of defence. He played 3, 2 were accurate. Ben Johnson 8, 3 accurate. Craig Dawson 8, 3 accurate. Cresswell 7, 2 accurate. He obviously wasn't. He was doing something different to the rest of them, but maybe he also didn't feel comfortable to do anything quickly and forward because he had to move the ball, come inside, and make things hard.
He'd have to use his left foot for that.
Exactly, which he doesn't have.
Also, can I just jump in on just briefly on intangibles?
You're going to.
I love the use of intangibles. I know it's not the word that you mean to be using, but it makes the centre back sound really mysterious.
Yeah, no, it's not intangibles. That means
it's a real intangible. Right? You've got to play the ball with the left foot. It's like, whoa.
Not intangibles. That's like, the thing.
Non-negotiables is what.
Non-negotiables. That's exactly the word. Yeah, defensive duel rate is a non-negotiable.
No, it's a real intangible, man.
It's ethereal. It's ethereal.
I was shocked at how bad Zouma was when he's asked to make play off the left foot. It was like literally, wow, it's like properly a wooden peg, innit? Like, it just looked like you're going to fall over every time you got a pass with it. And yeah, any situation where Dawson becomes the main playmaker is a nightmare. It's a situation you don't want to be in. It's a situation you cry about afterwards.
They played exactly the same amount of passes. However, I don't remember Zouma just decided to pass the ball to Wolves players for no reason under no pressure.
No, see, look, the thing is about Craig Look, I really like Craig, but
It sounds like he's your mate, Craig.
look, he's like James Collins, and I like James Collins too. He's gonna make a mistake or three, and they're
Especially
gonna
if
be
you give him
bad.
the opportunity to.
But everything else that he does is going to be great. So, like, you had Zouma, who was really kind of flopping on all levels as a centre back, and then you had Craig Dawson, who was like, right, I'm going to do 10 minutes of playing excellent, and then I'm going to do something really stupid, and then I'm going to go back to being excellent again for another 15 minutes, and then I'm going to do something really stupid again. So it's I think both are bad, but
all I can
it's
really
kind
remember,
of difficult to argue which is worse.
all I can really remember from his game is that pass to the Wolves player under no pressure that he didn't need to do, that was stupid. And then when Jimenez did that really fancy trick and he took him down, and the fancy trick was he kicked the ball forward. And Dawson reacted by just kicking him. He kicked him when the ball had gone a long way. And it just sometimes, I mean, Jimenez I thought was really good, and I thought he's a really intelligent striker, and I like watching him. Also, actually, it was Dawson who kept Jimenez onside for the one-on-one he should have scored, where he was 5 yards.
Dawson did that twice in the game, but my favourite Dawson moment was actually right at the end when we were pressing for an equaliser and the ball got cleared. And Dawson had like a 10-yard head start to get to it and play it back. And he kind of had one of those moments where he's like, do I turn and play it forward? Do I play it back? I don't really know what I'm going to do. Shit, there's someone right behind me. Let me clear it into Rosed. Wait, it's 1-0 and we're losing. We needed an equaliser. What have I just done? And I really liked Rice just in the middle of the pitch, who had an off game. And I kind of didn't like all the kind of gesticulating at people every time he made a mistake. He gave the ball away a couple of times and then looked really angrily around at everyone else. It's like, look, that was your fault, mate. But at that moment, when Dawson kicked it into Rosed to clear the ball for no reason, it just had Rice had run out of energy to be really frustrated with everyone and just sort of turned around and just slumped.
It's like when a sim hasn't eaten enough food on Sims 4, they're kind of just like,
We should piss himself.
I
know people talked about frustration. A lot of them stormed down the tunnel very angrily, apparently.
Zouma and Rice both straight down the tunnel.
I mean, it just was a bad day at the office, wasn't it?
Sorry, I did interrupt you, Kenny. You were going to say Dawson.
No, I was just going to say that he also had 50% defensive duel rate. So when you're centre-back pairing, making 50% of their duels, that's hideous. And then the only other thing I had, both had more ball losses than usual. Zouma 9, Dawson 8, which again, pretty terrible as a pair. And then another non-negotiable, or less non-negotiable, slightly negotiable, but
more of an intangible.
Moving forward, Dawson had 76% forward passing, which is just butters. Like, that is something that if we're looking at bringing other people in, that's something we've got to nail down on. Like,
usually asking questions on what words you mean when you say things as an analytical person. As a 32-year-old man, what is butters? Because I'm not going to be the oldest person who's heard you say that. So if I don't really, I think it means bad.
Ugly.
We're your target audience, Cal. This is the Knees Up Mother Brown podcast.
Well, we were talking about
education.
I would not let a child in my classroom say something was butters to me.
Wow.
I'm not going to let you do it either. So what we're saying was Wolves wasn't very good.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's my summation.
Back to front, not very good. Although I do want to make one point. Let me just make one point. When we switched to the 4-2-3-1 in the second half, it was all right, everyone. It was fine. The last 30 minutes were fine. We struggled in the final third, but construction was pretty good. We dominated the game pretty nicely. Generally,
us or them?
Us, like the spaces that we got into.
They didn't. It wasn't because they scored and kind of decided to.
No. Their mentality changed when they scored, but to be able to force them that deep for so long is a good thing. We really struggled once we got to the final ball, but everything else was kind of nice for the last 20-25 minutes. I think, while it's a bit disappointing to go away to Molineux and lose 1-0, there's a positive to take from it, in that as soon as we went back to doing what we do and what we do well, it was all right. It wasn't as dramatically bad. It wasn't a good performance, but it was all right. Sort of like Leeds was all right for the first 45 minutes. There was some bad moments and some good moments. It was just all right.
they're not a bad team either. Like,
No,
it's not like we've gone to Norwich away and got beat.
5 wins
like,
and
they're
6?
sixth in the league, like,
or something like that.
Yeah, they're on good form. They're playing exciting football. Like,
and the bonus would be that Man United lost, Arsenal lost, Brighton didn't, well, they lost as well. I think everyone beneath, even Palace drew. Anyone who could be looking to Leicester a mess.
My lovely Arsenal as well, going on like a 9-game run against teams at the bottom of the league, thinking they're the best thing since sliced bread, and then come up against someone who can play football and getting absolutely slaughtered in classic Arsenal under Arteta fashion.
Yeah, it was quite fun. That it was a palate cleanser. No, I was just taking the piss out of Arsenal.
No, the only other thing that I remember of note before we move on was that slightly sweet little Aït-Nouri free kick where he like ran over the dummy, turned around, and then whipped it in on his own foot. I was like, "What the? I've never seen that before." It was sick.
I've only ever seen that on FIFA years ago, where you could do that, and also clearly none of our defenders had seen it because the ball flew over the wall standing still, and then Kilman took the ball down and volleyed it under no pressure. It was, I mean, if that's something, if anything,
to be fair,
yeah, he did really well. If anything sums up our day, it's the fact that he did that. We all stood still from the free kick because usually we would react really well to something, and then when he had that. Well, defensively, they're pretty sharp on set pieces, Jack.
I was just trying to think who's. I'm trying to think whose fault it was. I think it was Ben Johnson, right? Like 2 yards
I thought it went over Dawson, but
no, who plays him on side?
It could have been the keeping him on side. He might have
Johnson
moved
on the far side.
He might have moved. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why we haven't looked at the Serie A thing and think actually maybe we should start defending deep into the box like they do in Serie A, but. That is a different discussion.
Just keep calling it Serie A, mate. I
know. As I do it, and I do Serie A, and then I go, well, it is Serie A. It doesn't really matter. They're Italian. And on that note, let's move on from that section. Right, well, we can move on rapidly to Vienna. Jack, thank you. Score predictions. Do you think we're taking all the points reaction from the last game?
Yeah, I think we'll do all right. They're not doing very well. They're still not doing very well. Better than last time we played them, but still not great. And I think there are some players that can come in and will want to make an impact. Vlasic will have something to say, I hope. Yarmolenko too, I hope. Masuaku. I think, positive result.
What about you, Callum?
Yeah, I agree. I can't really see us. Well, gosh, touch wood. But yeah,
you haven't just said that.
Yeah,
you haven't just said that.
But yeah, I think positive result, and I want to see at least Vlasic start. I'd love to see 90 minutes, but probably not. But yeah, I want to see him do something, or at least be given the opportunity to try and do something. I'd
like to see Vlasic in a 10. Let's say.
Yeah.
I still think he could play as a striker instead of Antonio, but what do I know? I think we'll react and win because we'll need to. Which leads us on to I know.
He's just predicted a win.
I know.
Crazy.
What's going on?
Crazy.
I predicted a win in the last Europa League game, by the way.
Someone get me a glass of warm milk. Oh, that was traumatizing, Chris.
21 years, 21 years old. You don't have a glass of warm milk. Drop a gin in it for the infection. City. Then we've got City. The City's due. I don't really want to talk about City. Yeah. If you thought I was positive before, I think we'll lose 3 or 4 against City. But on the floor, off to you, Callum.
I don't think it will be that bad. I don't expect us to win. But yeah, I mean, we've given him a game before, and it wasn't like a weak team. So why can't we do it again? In theory, I think they'll probably play an even strong. Jack's burning to go. They'll play an even stronger team, but it'd be more interesting to see how we set up because we've seen how we set up against Wolves. Is this indicative of Moyes turning back to the "I'm scared of teams" kind of thing? It's a bit fearful. The one thing I'm really, really concerned about is we got overrun in midfield against Wolves, and they play quite wide wingers. City play wing backs that come in and pack that midfield out. So if we got overrun by Wolves, I'm fearful of what Cancelo's presence in the middle could be and how we track that because it's quite complex and maybe we're not best set to do that.
That assist at the weekend was
gorgeous. City are not really doing 3s and 4s this season.
They haven't yet.
I don't really think 3s and 4s.
Someone's got to have one eventually.
That is true, but no, Kevin De Bruyne's not fit. Is that right?
No, he's got COVID. I think he's 2 weeks, so he won't be back.
So he's not in great form, but no De Bruyne, which helps. I don't think it will be some kind of walkover. I think we played badly against Wolves. I don't necessarily think that this gives way to some kind of run of terrible form. It's a bad game, but generally our form is really positive. And like Cal said, we gave these guys a game before already this season with a second string team, admittedly against their second string, but even so, that's still a huge disparity in quality. So I'm not confident, but I'd say we'll give them a game. I don't think it'll be a walkover at all.
Do you think we'll make changes?
What from the Wolves team? I don't think there will be any changes from the Wolves team for the City game. I think he's going to play Dawson, which I think Cal is going to be really upset about. I think Dawson will almost definitely play in the City game. Diop will definitely play in the Europa League game against Rapid Vienna. I know that seems mad on paper, but probably less chance to make play. I'm trying to find a way to excuse it.
He played well in the cup game against them, I suppose.
Yeah, look, I'd rather Diop played, I think. But look, I think you asked me what I think will happen. Yeah. I think Dawson will play.
Cal?
Yeah. Sadly, I think I agree. I don't know if we'll play the 5 kind of weird pressy system. I don't know if we'll do that. I don't know if we'll go back to the 4-2-3-1. I hope we do, but I don't know if Moyes sees that and thinks, we've got enough confidence in that system to go and take it to City. Probably not. But the Diop thing, I think he should start because it's not even just because I don't think Dawson was good enough. It's like the combination of you then have to put Zouma at left centre back, which clearly didn't work, as well as Dawson playing badly. So, and if you're going to ask Zouma to do that job again, then I just think it's silly when you have someone who's naturally able to play. And there's not that much of a disparity between Diop and Dawson for me.
I suppose you're working out if Dawson in your mind is 5% better than Diop, but Zouma becomes 5 to 10% worse a defender. Your maths would be that Diop, Zouma makes more sense, basically.
And it's just more like, I don't know, like long term as well. If we're currently in a position where we're having to think about maybe buying a left-sided centre back, which we're going to have to do anyway, but if you can get a tune out of Diop and Zouma, that's a good partnership if it works. So why not give it a go? Why try and force a partnership between Dawson and Zouma when Dawson's like nearing the end of his career? Like, it's just dumb. But I'm sorry, I'm getting angry about it.
It's dumb. I hate it.
I do wonder whether he'll think of Lanzini because he does sacrifice Benrahma quite readily. But I would expect the same 11. To be honest with you.
I would too. I wouldn't be surprised if the 5-2-3 comes out again, but with Antonio through the middle and Benrahma on the left, and not split strikers, but more of a standard 3-4-3. I would hate it, but I wouldn't be shocked.
I suppose it often, because our systems do look slightly different, I would guess just because they'll have more of the ball and so it changes how we play genuinely anyway.
Yeah. I wouldn't hate it as much if he plays like, I don't know, Cresswell left centre-back, Masuaku left wing-back, rather than trying to force one else to play some defensive thing again. Yeah. But at least if we're going to try it, do it properly. Like, if you're committed to that system and you think it's more defensively sound and it's going to suit the opposition better, then fine. But don't try and shoehorn players into positions that they're not fit to play. Like, because you're damning yourself to a poor result from the off.
Yeah, I agree. Look, let's hope he plays 4-2-3-1 and maybe we see Diop come in and we can play the ball out from the left again and do what we do well.
Play to our strengths. I think that's all anyone ever wanted last year when we felt like we came into those big games. Play to our strengths and at least test ourselves and see what worked. I mean, it worked against Liverpool.
That's it, because at least if you lose that way, it's kind of like, oh, well, at least we tried. Whereas losing against Wolves, you come away from the game and go, well, what could have been? Because if we'd have actually played to our strengths, we might have won. Rather than if we just got beat because they were better than us.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's so frustrating about the Wolves thing is it's not Man City, it's Wolves. I know they're playing well, but like, God, let's just do what we do. Why do we have to adapt ourselves beyond description, so that we can't even really recognise ourselves anymore, to try and stop Neves from playing long balls to Jimenez,
which didn't work.
Which he did anyway.
It's just so intangible, guys. It's just so intangible. And on such a note, I think we can wrap up there. Those of you who want to listen to more, we will be having a little bit of extra transfer talk on the audio podcast. The video podcast is ending here. The audio will have some centre-back and striker talk tacked on by some sort of editor who's going to do some more work than me from a past discussion. So if you've watched this and you think, "Oh, I certainly missed that guy talking," thanks. You can hear a little extra bit. And I say little, probably about 30 minutes or more, probably quite a lot more on the audio podcast. But if not, thank you for joining us, and we shall speak to you and see you next week. Goodbye.
Right, so we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page. There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah. It's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.